Okay, moving on to the fun stuff. Now let's learn how to make a D chord. A D chord looks like this. And the D chord is a chord that you're going to use many, many times throughout your years of playing the guitar. It's a great chord and you'll always use it. It's one of the most common chords. So let's look at how we make it. I like to visualize a little V pattern here on the fretboard between the 2nd and 3rd fret, which you can see on your screen there. And I try to match that V pattern by putting my fingers into that shape. A lot of chords I kind of tend to do that. Maybe that's just me, but I like to kind of visualize these shapes. It helps me to create the chords, especially when you're first learning to play. Now, with the other two chords that we learned, the simple G and the simple C, we were only using one finger at a time. So that's easy. Now with the D, we're actually going to use not one, not two, but all 3 fingers. So don't let that intimidate you. This is your first venture into creating a full chord, and it's not as painful as it looks, I promise. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with our middle finger, and we're going to put it on the 2nd fret, 1st string, like that, and we're going to create that note, which should sound like this. That note is an F sharp, and that's what it should look and sound like. Now, keeping that finger in place, we're going to take our 3rd finger, or our ring finger, and we're going to put it on the 3rd fret, 2nd string, like that. So the challenge here is to make sure that your the first finger we put down, which is our middle finger, stays in place. Now you can see now it's arched a little bit. When I just put it down like that, it wasn't arched. Now it's kind of arched and it's digging in. It looks like that. And now we have another finger introduced as well. So now we have 2. If we play the 2, it should sound like this. So try and get those 2 to sound right. Notice how they're both arched. That's what kind of the angle looks like. They're arched just like that. And both of them are as close to the fret as possible. Now what we're going to do, now we got those 2 in place, we're going to introduce our 1st finger, or our pointer finger. Now one thing I remember doing when I first learned to play was sometimes it actually helped me to hold my fingers into place while I put down another finger. I don't know if it's kind of hard to show here on the screen, but I don't know if that's something that helps you, but just make sure that these 2 don't move at all, and put this one down on the 2nd fret, 3rd string, like that. So you've got a little box, and this is what it looks like. So you've got 1, 2, 3, and that is your D chord. And when you play it, it should sound like this. Now it's probably not going to sound like that the very first time you try and make it, and that's okay, because chances are with all 3 fingers crammed in there, one of the fingers is probably touching a string that it shouldn't, or maybe it's not being pushed down hard enough. So keep playing with adjusting those fingers and make sure that they're in the right place. Now keep in mind too, my 1st finger here, notice it's kind of far away from the fret, or it's kind of about halfway up. And that's okay, it just means I'm going to have to push it a little harder. Now obviously we know our goal is to get it as close to the fret as possible, but it doesn't always work that way, especially when you're cramming lots of fingers into a little space. But that's okay, just kind of keep playing with it, and if you push down, you should be able to get the nice clean ringing sound like that. Now the other thing to pay attention to is the strum. I'm actually strumming 4 strings now. So I'm strumming the first 4 strings. I'm not strumming these 2. These are still, you don't play these 2 when you're playing the D chord in open position. You're only playing the first 4. Like that. So that is what a D chord looks and sounds like. Keep practicing, keep playing with it. Look at where your thumb is. Make sure that it's pushing if it needs to back there. And if you're having a hard time getting your fingers to fit, kind of adjust your hand and how it's wrapping around the neck, and that can help too. But the goal here is to just try and get each of those notes to ring out as clear as possible without any buzzing or popping sounds.